This tutorial is sponsored by the 3D Coloring Book, a project specifically designed to help empower artists who are struggling with texturing in Substance Painter and to help show you that anyone can create beautiful pieces of art with just a little bit of practice and guidance. To instantly gain access to hundreds of pre-made professional level models and hours of high quality tutorials, click the link in the description and begin your journey today.
Hi everyone, I am Maxence. I am a game art student and a 3D freelance artist, and today at Stylized Station I will show you my process for my latest props, the hand-painted prehistoric fish. So in this video I will show you my process from how I began with the idea, how I've some tips on how I've modeled my piece, and I will show you how I hand painted this piece using Substance Painter. And finally, I will show you how I've uploaded on Sketchfab. So let's start with my references. So I first started by gathering references on PureRef. So I create a mood board about everything I wanted to do with this piece. I wanted to do a fish also, and I wanted this fish to have some kind of prehistoric vibe because I really like these images. My main reference was this piece made by Jasmine Havezai Fikri, aka Low Poly Curl on Twitter and Sketchfab. It's an unpainted piece, and I really like the result. As such, I wanted for myself to study hand painted texture and do the same. I really like her work, so you should check it out. So I started to sketch the form of the fish. I know I wanted to create something stylized. I really like stylized and cartoonish art, so I wanted to create some kind of silly fish. I went at first for a lantern fish, but then I decided to do a piranha. I realized that only the fish wouldn't be very interesting, so I've decided to make a little cooking scene using a wooden plate and a knife. So I went into Blender to start modeling my piece. To model my piece, I went into Blender so I could start to model. Okay, here we are in Blender. As you can see here, it is my final piece, and here my blocking. So I will not go very deeply. I will not go too deep into the modeling because it's not the most interesting part. At first, I did a block out with a basic shape. I've started from a cube and I used the proportional editing that you can use using O in edit mode. I think that's a very useful tool in Blender. So yeah, I use this to start to put in shape my my piece. So let's see for the fish. My main idea for when I model everything is if the asset can be mirrored. I've used the mirror modifier. That's what I've done for the knife here. Forget about this. So that's what I did with the knife. At first, I only modeled just the half of the knife. Then I used a mirror modifier in order to in order to modelize the both sides quickly. Also, this comes very handy for the UV space. As you can see on the final piece, when I want to see the texture, here the UV space is shared on both sides. And for hand painting, this is really great because you only have to paint one side of your props and not the other. But this can create some problem. For example, for this piece, I couldn't put a shadow here because if I put a shadow here because the fish is near the ground, this would have been apparent here. So you have to keep that in mind when you when you mirror your model. So I've also and that's what I've done also for the fish. At first I've modeled only the half, and I unwrapped the fish. Then I've collapsed the mirror modifier. Then I've moved my fish in order to have a more natural pose. I've used once again the proportional editing to move everything. Forget about that. As you can see, for the modeling, I try to kinda not have any straight line. You can see for the knife, you can see for the fish, or even for the wooden plate or tree trunk plate, there is no straight line, because I think it gives a more cartoonish look with no straight line like this. So if you want to do stylized, I encourage. I would not say I encourage you to do this, but that's something I like to do when I'm creating stylized art. Another modeling technique I've used for this piece is one of the other modeling technique I use is to link the object data of the same meshes. For example, here we have a lot of plane. This plane will be used as leaf on the grass. This is a grass, and this is I would say some leaves, some grass. But it would be very, very difficult if we had to paint each kind of grass, and there is a lot. So what I did, as you can see here, when I go into Edit mode, all of these planes share the same object data. In order to do this, you just have to create a plane like this. Then you hit Shift D. You move it around your piece. You can move it and change it in object mode. Then you select your two pieces, and you hit Ctrl L. You make link object data. As you can see now, they share the same mesh, and also the same unwrap which means when in a Substance Painter we will paint one leaf here, this will be reproduced here and here. We can see it on the final model. For example, I only painted 3 types of leaves, and they are only repeated, and all of these mesh share the same UV space and type of mesh, I would say. You can see once again in Blender, here I have 3 mesh and only 1 UV space. So it's very it's really a time saver, especially when you have a lot of a lot of foliage or kind of mesh like this. I've done the same for the teeth on the fish. As you can see here and here, we can see it on the Sketchfab, on the Sketchfab view. We can see that you see all the red dots. There's all of these teeth share the same UV space because I've linked their object data because they share the same object data. One last thing when you model in Blender for hand-painted stuff, it's about the normal and the normal of your mesh. When after you have modeled everything, make sure to go in object mode, right click to click on shade smooth. At first it will look, let me show you. At first it will look like this. That's not something very nice. So what we will have to do is make sure that our auto smooth is enabled, and this can help a lot for some edges. But you can also put some sharp edge in order that the shape of your mesh come out more clear. Here, for example, I select all of my hard edges and I hit mark sharp, and this will help you to define your mesh, because otherwise it will not render as good when you will hand paint on top. So I've done the same for my fish. I've only put hard edge on the at the edge of the fin, and also here to define the dent. Also done the same for the edge of the eyes and for the dorsal fin. Anyway, you will see with your normal when it will just play with your hard edge until it look fine to you. Also about the unwrap. So like I said, when you model, make sure if you model something, make sure that if this piece can be mirrored it, and before you collapse the mirror modifier, because you will need to collapse it at the end, make sure to unwrap it before, as you can see here for the knife. Already this will help for the texture space. Also, but one more thing, when you unwrap, make sure that you put your seams between two type of textures. For example, here we have the wood of the knife handle, and we have the bandages. So in order that it could no, I would say it's more easy for you when your texture that every type of texture are delimited delimited by your seams. One last thing, so yeah, after I finished to model everything, I just create material for each type of for each piece of my scene. I've done one material for the fish, one material for the knife, and one material for the nature. If you use one material for different meshes, make sure that you unwrap. Take everything in count. Here, for example, we have some piece that's not very properly unwrapped. So after you after I finish my model, I just select everything. I choose to export in FBX. I give it a nice name, fishy knife. Make sure when you export to select object. We don't care about the rest. Hit export, and now your mesh is exported. Now we can go to Substance Painter to start hand paint. Oh, I also forgot this one, but it's okay. Okay, so now we are in Substance Painter, ready to hand paint. But first, we have to set up our scene. So, create a new project and choose as a template PBR metal correctness with alpha blend. That's very important. For the document resolution, you can go with 1K or 2K. I prefer 2K. And we're gonna select our FBX and hit OK. Alright. Now we have everything. We just have to make sure that our unwrap are OK. Alright. Okay, so now we can start to finish the setup. Go to texture set setting and delete everything except base color and opacity. You can use emissive in hand painting. This will not be the case here, but you can keep it if you want. Okay, we're only gonna use these two channels. Okay, so now before we go any further, we need to understand what is especially hand painting. When you will hand paint, it means that you will give every information on the texture using your painting skills, which means you will give the texture information, of course, but also the light information and the shadow information and shadow and ambient occlusion information, which mean you have the control on everything, even the light, only with your texture. So you have to keep that in mind and not use any external light. We're gonna see that later. The first thing to do is in Substance will be to create folder with base color. Using black mask. We're gonna use this base color folder just to set up the color of our piece. Here, for example, let's select some gray. We have the base color knife, and we're gonna put it in a folder. And this folder we're gonna add a black mask. And now with this black mask, we're gonna select it. Go to polygon fill. Use UV chunk fill, and we're gonna select our metal part for the knife. And so we're gonna block out every color of our mesh. We're gonna block out every color of our mesh using folder and base color and fill layer using base color. So now I just need to do this with every part of my piece, and we're gonna see everything later. Okay, so now we have put all of our base color in our no, sorry. So now I have put every type of texture in a folder with a base color. Is grass, is wood. Here in knife we have the end of the wood, the bandages, the wood, etc. Don't bother with the red, I will explain it later. And so we'll be able to start hand paint our props. But as I said earlier, hand painting is about giving every information through painting, which means here we have the shadow of the light of substance. We do not want that, so we're gonna work everything not in material view, but in base color view, because the final view that you will upload at the end will be this one. I mean almost this one, which will just have to tweak something with the opacity. But this view is only with the base color. So that's why I've said that you need to put every information through painting. So now I will show you my process for the grass, for example. First, I started with a nice classic color for the grass. Then, since there is something on the grass, I added an overall shadow layer. I used a darker color of green. Let me see you. By the way, I've used a darker color of green, and also something less saturated. Sorry. This one. Sorry. For the brush, for my the brushes I've used for this piece were the artistic heavy sponge and the basic soft or the basic hard or the basic soft. So I've used big chunk. So I took my brush and did big chunk of painting here. I've played a lot with the stroke opacity. With hand painting, it is very important that your color blend nicely if you want them to blend. So don't hesitate to use the opacity of your brush or the opacity of your layer. So after I've put the first shadow information, I would say, I've started to draw some grass. Once again, I've used the same artistic heavy sponges, and with not full opacity, I do not recommend that, but let's say 60. I've painted using a black mask the shape of the leaf. Since I wanted a stylized result, I decided to go with big chunk of leaf or of leaf on the floor. I do not want it. Did not want to make some small thin herb. Don't hesitate when you do stylized stuff to make it more exaggerated. Then I did the same with another color. That's why I think the fill layer are very useful. It's because if you want to change slightly the color of everything, you can simply by using the fill layer. And I added a third variation grass. Then I added a third type of grass. So now we have some nice type of grass. Now we have some nice type of grass. But then to make them react to the light, I've used another fill layer with a black mask, and I used a lighter color, and I made the blending mode of the layer into saturation. Then I lowered the opacity. This helped me to create wrong layer, sorry. This helped me to create some smooth light information. Too smooth here, for example, it was at 22. To give more depth to the grass. after this I added another shadow ambient occlusion layer. Once again, I've painted myself. Oh no! For example, here I've used a blur modifier. I will show you with the next layer. I use a blur modifier, a blur filter. I lowered the opacity so we can see the other layer behind. And here I added a soft light on the side of the grass. So once again, I've painted this light, but I've used a blur modifier. Let's see. I will delete this. I've only painted some big chunk of light here. Then on the black mask, I had right click, add filter, blur, and I can blur it out, so we can create a nice transition. Alright, so now, for example, at this point, I think I was satisfied with my grass. But so I've made something I've done some things so I can be sure about the color. I took a screenshot of my piece in base color. Then I put it in Photoshop, and I just simply add a black and white filter. This is a black and white filter. It's like because it's like illustration. When you put your piece in black and white, you can really see where it lacks contrast. So here, for example, even if I not finished the rest of my piece, I can see there is a lack of contrast between the tree trunk and the grass. So at this moment, I decided to add another shadow layer. Once again, I've painted some direct shadow. I used the multiply blending mode. Multiply really helps when you need to have darker color. Then I added a blue filter. All right. But now we still have this ugly red on the side. So this red was just a placeholder, it's just to show you opacity. When you will create your base color layer, you will have the opacity at 1. Substance will put it at the default at 1. But if you want to, for example, here I wanted to make more nice. I didn't want to have a big square for the grass. I wanted to make a smooth transition, so I put a layer behind, and as you can see, with 0 opacity. We don't care about the color, by the way. Sorry. All right. Now we see no difference, but if we go in material, we can see that it's transparent where it's paint. All right, so we have some problem of color, but we can edit out with painting with the black mask on the top. Oops. And that's what I've used for the leaf. We're gonna see the leaf now. So now we have our free leaf here. We've made a folder using a black mask that contains the 3 types of leaf that we have here. And so at the bottom, we're gonna use a void layer. So we don't care about the color. We're gonna just put it to 0. And another layer at the top, where we're gonna paint. Make sure that this layer has a nice color and use opacity 1. Make sure that this layer has opacity 1, and we're gonna paint the leaf. Once again, I'm using the sponge artistic sponge brush, heavy sponge brush. And like for the rest, I've put at the top one layer, one shadow layer, where I painted like some kind of shadow. Make sure that the layer that you put on top do not go do not exceed the border. Once again, I've used some low opacity brush to make a nice blend like this, and another layer for the light and the highlight, like this. Oh, for example, here with something more. Oh yeah. So that's the only time. It's the only time you need to go in material view, because in base color view you cannot clearly see the opacity. All right. So the rest of the scene follows the same workflow. I start to work the texture with some variation, then I add some light, some shadow, and I tweak everything a little. But I will show you quickly the disposition of the fish and of the knife. I will show you the layer disposition of the fish and the knife. So we have the fish here with the base color. I've started to paint this in Photoshop, but really I followed the same workflow, the same mindset as for painting the rest. Photoshop is good to hand paint. It's just a little difficult when you need to blend your texture between the seams. But yeah. So to show you my workflow, first I add the fish with just some blur I've put using the soft brush. Then I added no, that's the layer of the sorry. So here, for example, as for example the process of the mouse. Here we have a fill layer, a shadow ambient occlusion layer, one for the edge, one for the light on the edge. For those who know Substance, it's kind of like an ambient occlusion layer and one curvature light layer. So it's kind of the same process, but you have to paint them by hand. You could use curvature and an ambient occlusion generator, but I don't really like the result, so I prefer to do it hand painted. I've done the same for the mouse. One painting for the shadow, another to create more shape in the mouse. Once again, this layer helps us to understand the form of our fish in base color. Then one last just for the edges. This is just the eye, we don't care. Yeah, the eye can be cut. So yeah, for the skin fish, for example, I added one layer with when I just put some clear light for my fish. I would say it's kind of, if the light would go on, it's some kind of light layer. Then another one, when I just put, I've started to work the, here I wanted to work the scale of the fish, so I added a little variation. I added a little variation using another blue layer. I did the same here, once again to create variation and to simulate the scales. Then I added one layer for the kind of the edges, another for the ambient occlusion. here is the edge of the eye. Here I went once again for the edge light, and another one for like for some kind of dirt in the fish. As you can see, there is a lot of experimentation through this layer, so I recommend you in hand painting to experiment through the form and through the layer and through the layer, the color and the form of your mask. I added this layer just to define the shape of the fish back. You can use, you know, your black mask to create to refine your shape like this, but you can also use the polygon fill and select not this layer, sorry. You can also use the polygon fill just to select the face that will be in the shadow or in the light. This will, and that's how your topology can help you. Then I added this white dot to simulate once again the scales of the fish. Once again, I use a image reference, and as I saw the little scale, I try to exaggerate the form of the fish skin. So I translated this this little dot by some big white dot. Here, this layer, I've used the same process for at this moment. Sorry. So at this moment, I was satisfied with the fish, but I went once again in Photoshop, and I saw, using black and white filter, that my fish lacked some contrast. So I added one darker layer, once again with a blur modifier, to give more variation of on my fish. Then finally I added just one white layer to simulate the the specular light. And so yeah, for last example, I will show you the process for the knife handle. I just started with a base color, one layer that would simulate the light. Once again, I try to play it very soft on the edges. One for the shadow. I went with a bluish darker color to give more variation once again. Another color for the light. Here I've used some hard edge to make the light clear. Another layer for the ambient occlusion between the wood and the bandages, once again with a blur layer. And a last one, just and a last one for the light on the edge. And just with this, it's not it's very fast, but that's what I've used for my final piece, since it was not the main focus of the piece, of the art. Don't hesitate, so to stylize the shadow or the light to give them big shape when you need, but be sure to have control between the color and the shape of the, I would say, the shape of the light. I know it's not very clear, but if everything is smooth like here, or hard or sharp like this, it will not look as good as if you use both of them. It's maybe not clear. Maybe we can cut this. Anyway, now I will finish the texturing, and I will show you the preset to export. Alright, so now when we have finished to unpaint our piece, make sure that your opacity work in the material view. But once again, keep in mind that your main view is this one. You can go in File, Export Texture, and so what I've made is an output template myself for when I want to export hand-painted stuff. So in order to do this, go to Output Template, add Plush, you have the new export preset. Yes, so change the name to Handpaint preset, and so for the output map, select one RGB map and drag and drop your base color here, RGB, and create a grayscale map and drag and drop your opacity here, from opacity gray channel. So yeah, so I have my hand painted preset. So now in output directory, choose the folder that you want to export. Choose your template. File type hit PNG. PNG. Texture size. Select the one that you want, 2K or 1K. Padding, I suggest deletion infinite to be sure that there is no problem between the seam. You can click on no padding if you want to, I would say, to present your texture work. Opening, and you can export. And now I have my texture here, and I can start to upload them on Sketchfab. So Sketchfab is an amazing, website to upload your 3D art. So when you have your model, just so hit upload, upload the FBX, the one that you used on the substance. Create a description and go to edit 3D setting in order to put your texture. So in the first scene, be sure to click render PBR and shading shadeless, because if you go to lit, it will create it will simply put light on your model. So shadeless. For the background, it's how you want. It's really about what background fit more your piece. But now the important stuff will be about to upload your texture. So click, for example, here we are. Normally you will have nothing, but click on manage textures and select to import all of your texture. Alright, and simply here you have your material. Select all of your material, and here select your texture to use. Oh, that's not the one. For example, here we have a bug. If you have opacity, make sure to have opacity enable here. The rest we don't care. So select, so once again you have to select your texture, this one, but be sure in manage texture for the opacity that the format is luminance, because if it's alpha it will create something like this. So format luminance for your opacity texture. Then on your post-processing filter, I would say it's really up to you. I really like the vignette filter. yeah, I think it added really a little more on it. The bloom is good to create some fake reflection. I'm not a fan of chromatic aberration. You can use grain, but be aware to not put don't put too much grain, because it can really, I would say, make something not very good. So here, just really play with this. I use the sharpness for my piece because I really like the smaller end there to make it a more, I would say, 2D look. I don't know. And then after that you're satisfied with your piece, you can simulate what. No, forget it. You can delete that. Hit save setting. Didn't pause, sorry. And then you have your hand-painted model, and then you have your hand-painted model on Sketchfab. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you for following me for this tutorial on Stylized Station, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.